Hello everyone, welcome to Rainbow Infinity. Today I'll be reading Art Inspired's Pinkie Steals a Cookie. If you like the reading, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please enjoy. Pinkie Steals a Cookie. The flame within Pinkie's belly had been ignited. She wasn't sure where such a dark thought could have come from, or what she was going to really do about it, but Pinkie suddenly wanted a cookie. This time around, however, she'd refused to pay for it with her very own hard-earned bits. Her hoof felt the cold, hard surface of the counter, and her heart began to beat faster and faster. All she could think about that day was the thrill of having something like that, and having it for free. She wasn't even going to ask permission from Mrs. Cake. That just wouldn't be good enough for her. Pinkie knew deep down that she had to take it, and she couldn't allow any pony to see her doing it either. "Oh," she sighed, thinking about all of the nasty, toxic things Everypony would say about her. "They won't, though," she longingly whispered to the glass panel, separating herself from the few cookies that were on display. There were so many different kinds of cookies, too. At first, Pinkie wasn't even worried about which kind she necessarily ended up getting. All she really wanted was to steal, but just one. Perhaps the bathroom might be a good place to enjoy it. This'll be a pretty big heist, she thought to herself. There was also all of the customers to worry about. She looked up and saw several ponies eating their sweets and enjoying their milkshakes. A few ponies were walking towards the counter so that Mrs. Cake could take their orders. Even though Mrs. Cake was distracted, those two fillies would probably catch Pinkie in the act of committing her heinous crime. She waited longer than she'd like, but eventually, Mrs. Cake wandered off in order to prepare a sudden, large order. "Finally," Pinkie Pie whispered. She crept back up to the glass and glared at it with starving eyes. "Sorry, Mrs. Cake. Sorry, Sugar Cube Corner, but I need this." At first, she rose a hoof, but then she saw somebody walking up to her. "How'd you know that I wanted one of those?" The clueless customer then also said, "I'll have just one of those delicious-looking chocolate chip cookies, pretty please." Pinkie stared at the customer for a moment. She wanted to tell her that they were out of cookies, and that there's actually never been any cookies. Cookies are just a myth. The cookie was pulled out of Pinkie's hoof, and as it entered the customer's mouth, Pinkie sighed. "Darn," she thought to herself. "Now what'll I do?" The words of that previous customer echoed within her pink, frail, and fragile head. "Now I've just got to have one of those chocolate chip cookies, too. But what if I end up getting one with raisins instead?" She reconsidered. "I mean, a raisin cookie wouldn't be all that bad either. I just really, really, really want one." She slowly opened the glass panel and closely watched every pony as they all enjoyed their respective sweets and treats. It became quiet, and as she checked around for Mrs. Cake, Pinkie took her chance. Her hoof trembled, and time stood still. Was this the turning point in Pinkie's life? Was it all downhill from here if she went through with this? It was right in front of her, and its reflectively crisp and chocolatey chunks seemingly mocked Pinkie where she stood. She gulped momentarily, and then reached out for it with a napkin. "All right. Steady." She looked around once more to make sure no pony was watching her, and then Pinkie slowly started making her way towards the bathroom. "No!" She stopped and stood still for a moment. "The bathroom might be too risky. Every pony will see me as I go by." The only other option that was left for Pinkie Pie was for her to sneak into the back of the store where all the storage was kept. The whole time, Pinkie continuously checked over both of her shoulders just to make sure no pony could see what she was doing. It became eerily darker and quieter and colder the further Pinkie went. Her bushy tail could just faintly be spotted sticking out from the many stacks of metal, green racks, and if one were to listen closely, they'd hear a series of guilty munches, followed by the delightful moans that the mare was occasionally making. "Oh, ho, ho, oomph!" Pinkie Pie mused to herself in between bites. She gulped, and then mumbled only for a second. "It's rations, but, oh well, it's still so good." She took another big, wholesome bite, and then another one. Her belly rumbled nearly the entire time, and just as soon as Pinkie had slowed down to take a quick breather, she inhaled the rest of it like a vacuum cleaner. She shivered as the sugar freely surged throughout her whole entire body. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Cake, but I just..." She finished eating, and in turn finished saying, "I couldn't help it. I desperately needed that yummy, yummy cookie." She turned around and considered going back and getting yet another one, but something stopped her. That something was none other than Mrs. Cake. She was standing directly in front of Pinkie Pie, and from the looks of it, she had probably also been there the whole entire time. The light shined behind her, which helped darken her complexion. She just ominously stared onwards in Pinkie's direction, and then Pinkie gasped with undeniable shock. Pinkie Pie had no idea that she was being trailed, and that her boss had been observing her every action from a fairly safe distance away. "Pinkie Pie," she began, "did you just blatantly and carelessly steal one of those scrumptious cookies that we baked together?" You know just as well as I do that those cookies belong to the customers. So why'd you do it? Did you miss breakfast?" Pinkie timidly answered, "No." "Did my husband say you could have it?" "No, ma'am," Pinkie responded sadly. "You didn't even save any for me, did you?" "No," Pinkie coughed. "I didn't. I ate it all up and didn't—" "What? Wait, leave some for you?" Mrs. Cake giggled and brought a hoof up to her muzzle. Afterwards, she flipped on the lights. She held in her other hoof another cookie, and this one was to be shared. "Here you go, Pinkie. But seriously, if you're ever feeling hungry, but you really don't want to pay even with your employee discount, just come talk to me about it, and we might be able to work something out. Just not all the time, all right?" Pinkie somewhat sniffled, and she then gracefully took a slow and soft bite. It was made with chocolate chips, and she nodded contentedly at this generous gesture. "Okie dokie. Umph. She swallowed before continuing. "I really am sorry. I honestly don't know what came over me back there." Mrs. Cake laughed enthusiastically. Hugging Pinkie Pie, she said, "In that case, talk to your psychiatrist about kleptomania." Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Until next time, stay tuned.